Hi, my name is Jacob Freers and I am an ANGA Apprentice Rock Guide, and this is Carlin. Today we're going to be showing y'all how to build tape gloves for crack climbing. The reason you would want to know how to build tape gloves for crack climbing is because if you're maybe getting into crack climbing or you're crack climbing a ton, you really want to be able to keep the back of your hands protected in order to really optimize your days outside. That's okay. So the first thing you're going to want to do is build an anchor down here around the wrist. When you're putting this on, you're going to want to put it on tighter than is comfortable, because as you sweat throughout the day, it's going to expand, and you want to make sure, especially this wrist anchor, that it stays secure. So I've built just the one loop around the wrist, covering the wrist bone and kind of where the thumb meets the hand. Next thing I'm going to want to do is set out 2 or 3 strips over the top of the hand, covering the knuckles and making sure I'm pressing down firmly and kind of rubbing those edges down. While the person's hands are being taped, you're going to want to make sure that they are holding a lot of tension. So they're kind of flexing their hand while you're putting the tape on it. That way, whenever they relax and then jam their hand again, that the tape will stay in the position that you want it. So depending on your hand size, you may only need 2 strips or you may need 4. It's really just depending on your size, but you want to go from this wrist anchor all the way up to this big set of knuckles at the base of the fingers. Next, what you're going to want to do is get a longer piece ready. And what we're going to do is we're going to go from the wrist anchor around the pinky and then back to the wrist anchor. So you're going to want to measure that out, just kind of eyeball it. Set this anchor down here at the wrist, bring it up, pinch it through the pinky finger, wrap it around, and bring it back down to this anchor. If it goes a little past it, that's okay. We just want to make sure it gets at least down to the anchor. And so now we've kind of secured the edges of that piece. And then we're going to want to do the same thing with the pointer finger. And so that same idea, that getting your distance, you're going to place it on the anchor, press it down, make sure that your climber is flexing their fingers, pinch it through their fingers, and then wrap it back around. So now I can kind of go through and make sure that this is all pressed down. Both my pinky and my pointer fingers loops went back down to the anchor. And then the last thing is we'll want to do that same around the finger to the thumb, and making sure we're getting kind of this meaty part of the thumb here, because that takes the weight of a lot of jams. So for this one, I like to actually start on the bottom of the hand and go from there. So instead of starting on the top, I'll start on the bottom. I'll start down here and make sure I'm covering up kind of the meat of that thumb. Go in between the thumb and the pointer, and then back around to the anchor. And so great, I want to make sure it's all pressed down as flat and as smooth as possible, and we'll be good to go. The last thing you'll do is you'll want to wrap that wrist anchor around again 2 or 3 times, and you'll want to do this one extra tight. And so make sure that your person's flexing their hand as hard as they can. So I come back down here to this anchor, and I wrap it 2 or 3 times. And then if done correctly, that should keep you for the whole day. Another really cool thing about the tape crack gloves is that you can actually cut the tape on this wrist side in order for them to be reused maybe the next day or maybe in 2 days, whatever. It allows you to use way less tape. So what you want to do is, at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot easier because you're going to have sweated in it, but you want to be very careful and come right down here to the wrist and just gently cut through the wrist portion, and then after you kind of get it started, you can just go down like that. And then that will allow you to kind of take the whole piece off of your hand. And then if you made them really well, they should kind of stay in the same shape. That way you can put it back on maybe the next day or the day after. And then all you would have to do is put another piece around the wrist here. The last thing I want to hit on is the fact that a lot of brands are making a pre-made crack glove now. So this is from a brand called G7, and this is kind of like a leather-based crack glove, as well as Black Diamond makes one that is kind of a suede on the base and then some thin rubber. There's another brand called Okun, which is really popular in Europe, and then probably Outdoor Research is the next most popular one. These can be really great. They're really fast to put on and off. All you kind of have to do is just string your fingers through the loops and then get down the Velcro that's kind of on the piece. And so that way it goes on and it's removable and it comes on and off very quickly. They are very convenient. Something I will say though is they don't have as high a sensitivity on the back of your hand. So when you're on harder routes, harder cracks, having the high sensitivity of tape is really, really nice. It's also tough to get these as tight as tape is. So again, like if you're on something more difficult or more challenging for you, tape could definitely be the way to go. But obviously with tape, if you do that every time, you're gonna run through a lot of rolls of tape. So it's kind of one of those things. I use both. I enjoy having multiple different styles of the pre-made crack gloves, as well as using a tape glove on kind of more difficult style, or before you buy a crack glove, it's a great time to use tape.